Hello and welcome to Cruising and Musing. I am your host, Rob, now sometimes called Uncle Bob. We are cruising across State Road 80 in Studio B, and we're rolling through the two-stoplight town. I called it a one-stoplight town before, two-stoplight town of Elva, out in the upper portion of Lee County. And it came to mind that I've never explained to everybody why I like my Lincolns. So that's what this video is why would I drive these V8 Lincolns that get, the 79 Continental gets about 10 miles to the gallon around town and, I want to say 13 on the highway. And, I'm looking at my readout now. This '08 town car is getting about 23.5 miles per gallon on the average. And that's a combined highway and city driving in it. Keeping in mind that I do most of my city driving either under 35 miles an hour in stop signs or roll it in 40 to 50 miles an hour on side streets. I try to stay off of the main drags. So I'm not doing as much stop and go traffic as other people might. So number one, I'm a big dude. Big cars are comfortable. I've had Kia Souls and a Dodge Intrepid that I fit into pretty well. And that Kia Soul was kind of nice. I could open up that hatchback and, I could fit myself, the dog, and, like a washing machine or a dryer in there and cart it over to my grandparents and hook it up for them. So I could kind of treat that Kia Soul like it was a miniature truck, but it still, was only getting me around town about 23 miles to the gallon because of the actual stop and go. And, at the end of the day, when you're accelerating from 0 to, 30 a lot, there's only so much that you can do. Now, one of the nice things is that this is a very smooth ride. This '08 Lincoln has air suspension in it. It's a very smooth ride. It's got the longer wheelbase. This is an incredibly comfortable car. I drive, it feels like I'm sitting at my computer chair. I put on the cruise control. I'm in comfort. Yeah, I've got an aftermarket sound system in here. So it's kind of like having a newer car rather than an older car. But you just can't find a newer car that rides like one of these. It's kind of like floating the couch down the road. And it's the same thing for the 79, except if you believe it, it's an even cushier ride. I can go over a speed table at 20 miles an hour in the 79 Continental, and I could be holding a soda in my hand and that soda won't even start rocking. I can go over a speed table 20 miles an hour in this, and I'm not jerking my back around. I'm not as happy as, I might be in the 79, but I'm also not throwing myself and my passengers around. And that is kind of a part B to this, is that while I do mostly drive alone, these large cars are very handy for moving cargo that is not the size of a dryer or a washing machine around. So you could put a tow hitch on the back of them, and you could pull a small tire behind or a small trailer behind to move those things. But I have space for other people. In this '08 in particular, this is called an L, and what that means is there's an extra 6 inches of leg room in the back, and the door is open all the way up to a 90-degree angle. So when I've got my grandparents with their walkers and canes going on, I can load my grandparents into the back seat. It's wide enough that the door opens up where I can help them in and out, get their walkers and other stuff in, and don't forget the fact that I can fit 4 bodies in the trunk if anyone insults Grandma. Because if someone insults Grandma, well, they've just wrote that check and somebody's going to cash it. So, huge trunk, big back seats, move your family around, or you're not family around, move your pets around. And the other part of it is, like, I paid $5,000 for this car. It's got 215,000 miles on it now. And this car could very well run with very little money into it, very low maintenance. Some things go with age, but as you take care of the things that go with age, this car could very well run to 500,000 miles, 1,000,000 miles. There's plenty of million-mile cabs still rolling around New York City, and part of that has to do with the fact that it's relatively cheap to keep them up. Spare parts are relatively easy, and because they still do have a sizable engine bay, it doesn't take the kind of labor hours to fix things that it takes to fix it on other cars. Here's an example. I had to change the fuel pump on the 79 Continental. It just so happened to go out when I was near my mechanic, and he was able to, in 15 minutes, as soon as the part arrived from Napa, we had to wait 30 minutes for the part to get to his shop. But in 15 minutes, he was able to unhook the old fuel pump, hook on the new fuel pump. The new fuel pump cost $20. He charged me for, like half an hour labor rounded up. So for less than $50, I was on my way again. Do a Google search on how much it costs to replace the fuel pump on, say, a Mini Cooper or a smart car or, other small sedans. And you're going to find that it's much more expensive because you can't get to the fuel pump. To get to the fuel pump, I think in a Malibu, you got to take the one tire off, then you got to take the guard off from in the wheel well and, get up in there and get behind things. I've seen some small cars where you have to take pieces off to even get to the oil filter for an oil change. That's not good. Anything a mechanic has to take off, he has to put back on. That's labor hours you're paying for. Whereas, like I had a control arm replaced on this car. I was able to get a more heavy-duty control arm for it for $150, and the mechanic that replaced it was able to replace it in an hour's labor. So it cost me $220 to replace the control arm. More modern cars, smaller cars, that's going to be more expensive because, again, you got to move all the other stuff to work on those components to get in there and reach to them. The 79 is so simple of a car. I can do a lot of the work myself. Adjust the carburetor, change the spark plugs. There's no computer in there for me to have to mess with. So anything that's wrong with the car, I need to, be able to diagnose what's wrong with it. But a lot of the stuff I can fix myself as well because there's no computer in it. But, it is what it is. And, being 79, it's still got less than 5,000 miles on it. So there's not much that goes wrong other than gaskets being old because it's a 40-year-old car that, just hasn't been driven in 40 years. So all the wire, or rubber rather, is worn out. But, if I don't have the know-how, any mechanic with some basic know-how can go get in there and work on it. And again, it's just so easy to work on that things take less time and you save money on labor and upkeep. So, like, if I had to, say, choose between this 08 and the Kia Soul I drove, well, yeah, the Kia Soul was kind of cheap to maintain because I had bought it brand new and had it under warranty. So anything I brought in, I, rolled in and they fixed and replaced and what have you. But this car, I bought it with, again, $5,000 cash out of hand. For the price difference of, I put $1,000 of aftermarket equipment in for my creature comfort. I'm going to have to do a repair for the AC compressor in it soon. I'm not looking at that much more money, after I bought it compared to, a car payment for a $22,000 car. And I have way more car, and the only thing I'm missing is that hatchback. Only thing I miss about that Kia Soul is the hatchback. And I have almost as much room in the back seat of this. In fact, I would not be surprised if I could actually get a dryer in there, though it might scuff up the seats, so I'm not going to try. In fact, I used to DJ when I was in college, and I had a Crown Vic. No, I had a Grand Marquis. I had a 96 Grand Marquis at first, and I used to be able to fit two double stack 15 PA speakers in there and put a set of 18-inch subs. I would put one sub in the trunk, one sub in the passenger seat. Then I would load in all the power amps and cables, and I could roll around with this 4,000 watt stereo system. Again, two double stack 15-inch main speakers with horns and everything. They weigh 92 pounds each. And these, two single 18-inch subwoofers in the car. You're not going to fit that in a little car. It's an incredible cargo space. I'm kind of like my poor dog. You've seen her on some of the videos. When I had the big car when she was growing up, when she was a puppy, I had the big Crown Vic. She could lay down across the front seat and put her head on my lap and get her ear rubs and pets as I'm rolling along. With that Kia, I had to put her in the back seat. She couldn't ride in the front seat. If she rode in the front seat, she kept kicking the gear shifter on the center column over into manual on because it had the Manumatic gear selector. She'd kick that over, and the next thing I know, I'm in third gear, which is a really weird experience having someone kick into third gear when you have the CVT transmission, because it's just an artificial limitation. Whereas, when we're in the big car, she can ride shotgun. There's plenty of room for her to move around over here without being a traffic hazard. Or the gigantic back seat if I really want to have her back there where she can stretch out. So it makes road tripping with the animals much easier. In fact, when I moved over to go to college, I fit everything I owned into that 96 Grand Marquis. Absolutely everything. I had all of my clothes, my computer chair, little stereo system, all of my books, my bedding, everything I owned. I didn't own a mattress at the time, or any dressers or furniture, but everything I owned, including some extra stuff like preserved food and whatnot the family had given me because they were worried I was going to starve to death. All of that came over in just one carload. So these big cars, the newer ones, are getting almost as good gas mileage as like a smaller car when you're not having to drive, stop, and go traffic. They're very comfortable. You can fit a ton of crap in them. You can fit a bunch of people in them. I could fit 3 large adults into my back seat, then a large adult and a child in the front seat with me, and I'm not a small person. That's part of why I got this car as my daily driver. And that's the other thing. When you have a classic car, you have to keep a daily driver on the road. Otherwise, you can't get classic car insurance. And because classic cars don't have any of the safety features the modern cars do, they cost a lot to insure. That 79 was supposed to cost me $1,800 to insure as a daily driver. So we weren't going to do that. It was cheaper to buy a second car and insure it. And the 79, again, I can fit 3 people in the back seat, 3 people across the front seat. And so I can, roll around 6 full-grown adults in the 79, 5 full-grown adults in the 08. You show me that getting done comfortably in a Dodge Neon. You're not going to do it comfortably. You might do it. You might get some skinny people packed in, 5 into a sedan, but you're not getting 6. Not like the big car, and you're not going to do it with the level of comfort I do, like where it's good for a road trip. And that's the other thing is this beast on a road trip, if I can set it at 65, 67 and roll, I'm going to get 27, 28 miles to the gallon. Even a little, a much smaller car isn't going to do that much better than it. And I know not all small cars are created equal, and I really have just that Kia Soul as my basis because I've always driven large cars. just fit into them better. But yeah, so why out of all large cars, these Lincolns? Well, Lincolns are the nice ones. Lincolns have the leather interior. They have the double-din stereo that you can swap out really easily. They have the cushioned air ride. I've got, all my extra interior controls, my ABS controls, and all of that in this Lincoln that just wouldn't be found in a Crown Vic, even if I was driving a better than base model Crown Vic. And for those of you who don't know, when it comes to like a Ford Lincoln Mercury, that is your base, midline, top line in luxury. I'm kind of staggered there. And of course there's sub trims in between. So like your very top line Mercury might be nicer than the baseline Lincoln, and your top line Ford might be nicer than the baseline Mercury. But these are luxury cars, so you're getting all those luxury things. And yeah, it might be luxury of a decade ago, but I don't feel the need to have, like blind spot detectors. It's called a mirror, and looking where you're going. I don't need a collision warner. It's called looking where you're going. I've been driving around this entire time, and you guys have never seen me come close to hitting anything. So a lot of these modern conveniences they pack into cars, I personally just find to be more things that can break and something else that has to be fixed. And that's the other thing about this is, these 4.6 V8 engines, they're very solid, very reliable. Yeah, this one spit out a couple of spark plugs. They do that from time to time. But, compared to the kind of issues like the recall on the Kia for the cars catching on fire, it's a little less of an issue. And again, with very little maintenance, steady oil changes, and a few accessory systems getting swapped out and updated and repaired. If you're being competent and not taking it back to a Lincoln dealership for those repairs, you're only going to spend a few thousand to maintain that level of luxury. And, it just keeps rolling down the road for years and years and years. Now, why would I take Ford over Chevy? Well, just simply Ford always held on to the bigger cars longer. I don't really have a dog in the fight about trucks. I've never owned a truck. I've occasionally thought it would be nice to own one. But, I can rent a pickup truck. I can rent a pickup truck from U-Haul for $20 if I need to move something or find a friend with one. I can't rent this kind of luxury for $20. It's $20 for an Uber one way most of the time. So there you have. That's really why I like the Lincolns and I enjoy them. I'm not getting that much worse fuel economy than other people are getting with their smaller cars. Especially when I'm driving distance instead of around town. And, they're just very, very comfortable. They're very excellent. It helps me help my family out because I can load up the grandparents and take them when they need to go to doctor's appointments and others aren't available. And, compared to something like a van, a van can move them around and whatnot, but then you have to deal with having the van. People asking you to help them move because you have the van. I drove a minivan for a while, and you know what? It's just not as sexy as the big rolling black boat coming down the road with its chrome and its nice lines and styling. So, why do I like Lincolns? They look good, they're comfortable, they're big. I got V8 power, and if I wanted to, I could make this thing shit and get a little ECM tune, like, get it to run more like a Mercury Marauder that would take this from 240 horses up to 280, little bit of exhaust work, put a supercharger on there. Suddenly this is a 450 horsepower, true to the wheels, muscle car that can seat 5 grown adults. And I'm still in the lap of luxury with all the room in the world compared to trying to fold yourself into a Mustang or another muscle car. So there you have it. There's my reasoning. And, take it or leave it. You can disagree. But I love my Lincolns, and I've never had one stink.